Hello everyone, and welcome to our ActionKit Advocacy 101 training. I'm really excited for you all to be here. So we have a ton of material to go through, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. So first, here's an outline of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be starting with pages, including what types of pages are available, the differences between them, how to create and customize those pages, how to create targeting for your pages, and then delivering your petitions to those targets, and then how to view page performance. After that, we'll move on to creating and customizing your mailings, how to personalize them to individual recipients, targeting your mailings, and then viewing their overall performance. I do want to emphasize something pretty important though. What we're covering here today is general guidance. As a former ActionKit client myself, one of the things that I love about ActionKit is how customizable it is. And I've noticed that every client uses ActionKit just a little bit differently. That's great because it means that our clients are always innovating and trying new things. But it's important to keep in mind that the workflow that you see here today during this training might look a little bit differently from your organization and how you do it, and that's totally okay. So let's get started with pages. There we go. On screen here is the Pages tab, where on the left you can browse recently created pages. You'll see details like the title, the notes, any tags associated with the page, what type of page it is, how many users have taken action, and when it was created. You can edit the page, or you can view it, and you can even make a copy of the page. On the right-hand side, you'll see a navigation menu, and I've expanded the Add Page menu to reveal many of the different types of pages that we can create. This screenshot doesn't show all of the available page types, and that's on purpose. I wanted the screenshot to be a little bit readable, but you can see that I have lots of different page types available to me, and if I were to click on petition or letter or call, then that would begin to create a page of that type. Another way that you can create a page would be to copy an existing page that's similar to the one that you want to create. Here I've highlighted the copy button in red. Well, why would you want to copy from a previous page? Well, chances are your organization has set up some details of that page that are common across many different pages. Maybe you use a specific custom page field that you use on many different pages, or maybe sometimes you have boilerplate set up on a page that you don't want to forget to include. But if you find yourself copying from old pages frequently, I would recommend setting up a page model. And a page model is a special type of page that you can customize. I think of it as a template that you can copy and work off of. I won't be going into creating page models today, but I do want to say if your team has already set up a page model, you'll probably want to use them, and you can find them right here. So this training is focused on advocacy, and it's just a 101, so I won't be covering every type of page today, but I'll be focusing on the most commonly used types of pages. Sign-up pages are commonly used on the front page of your website, and I think of them as being like very quick and easy to get new members, and they can be, but they're not necessarily associated with a specific issue or campaign. Petition pages are most commonly used type of page in ActionKit, and they're used for general actions. So sign this if you agree. And you have the option to deliver these signatures to Congress, or you could print them off and deliver them to other kinds of targets, like the CEO of a corporation. Letter pages are similar to petitions, but they require a comment from the user. Petitions can have comments, but they're optional by default. Call pages allow you to define a set of targets and send your members to call them. For example, calling Congress to tell them to keep Obamacare. You set up the targeting. For instance, the House, and people get the option to call their specific congressperson. Letter to the editor pages allow you to get members to submit letters to the editor of their local, regional, and national newspapers. And whip count pages are used both for calling to persuade, but also to figure out where different targets stand on your particular issue. Who still needs to be persuaded? When you're creating a page, there are some things that are common to every type of page. Let's start with the Action Basics screen. The first thing that we need to do is give our page a title. Once we do, the short name, which will make up the URL that visitors access the page from, that's going to be auto-generated, but you can customize it if you like. Next are the notes, which your members won't see, but it's for you and your staff to describe, what is this page all about? Why did we make it? What's it for? So it's an internal description just for you. So make it descriptive. And then here's the tags, which are a way of categorizing your pages. Two more things that are common to every page type are these multilingual options and the custom page fields. There's also the advanced options, but this is a 101 and we have limited time, so I won't really cover them today, but just know that they're here if you need them. We also don't have much time to go into the multilingual campaign options right now, but here's a quick overview of how they work. If you're running a campaign in multiple languages, you'll create multiple pages, translate content into the languages you're using, and then tie them all together here under the same multilingual campaign. Down here are the custom page fields, and these are special fields that you can customize on a per page basis that can modify the look and feel of your page. You have full control over what your custom page fields can do, and you can create your own, and you can embed them in the layout of your pages. How to do that and all of the amazing things that you could do with that, that's really worthy of its own training. But I want to be brief and, cooking show style, show you two custom page fields that I've already set up and created. This first field, the custom CSS, that allows me to add custom CSS to my pages. Any CSS code that I want, I can add right in and it'll go to that page. So in this example, I'm using this CSS to change the background color of my submit button, and it only applies to this specific page. This second field, featured image, allows me to embed an image on the page, and I can also upload them by clicking on the blue plus sign here. Some options really only make sense for certain types of pages. For instance, a letter to the editor page, that's going to have different options than a call page or a petition page. Here are some options for the letter to the editor page, where you can choose which types of newspapers get included. Should we allow the user to just submit letters to the editor for their local and regional papers? Should we include phone numbers for the newspaper as well? We can customize all of that here. And here are the options for a call page. First, you need to choose the targets. So who are you trying to get your members to call? Are these legislative targets, like I want you to call your representative, I want you to call your senators? Is it their state representative or state senators? All of those are built into ActionKit, so you don't have to collect the data yourself. We've taken care of that for you. In this example, I've chosen the full U.S. Senate as my target group. You could also create a custom target group, for instance, to be able to call the corporate headquarters of a set of companies. And I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. Depending on how you set up your targeting, some of your members might not have anybody to call. For example, if you set up your targeting to, I want my members to call all House Democrats. Well, What happens if you send this page to someone who doesn't have a Democratic representative? If they have a Republican representative, will they be able to call anybody, or will they see, sorry, this action isn't available in your area? The fallback page URL lets you make that choice. And you can also include local offices if you like for in-district calls, especially if the Capitol switchboard is busy. Here are the options for a petition page. If you're planning to deliver these signatures, you can set your targets here. Like, for instance, this is a petition to House members or senators, or maybe even to corporate targets. You can also assign a goal here, and a thermometer will appear on your page showing the progress of how many actions were taken. And you might have noticed that a goal is available for all of the page types that we talked about earlier. On the second screen, the Edit Content screen, you'll get to edit the content that appears on your page. First, under Appearance, you can customize the template set, which is your customized layout, look, and feel of your pages. Every client has customized their own template set to reflect their own branding, as well as their own style and design choices. And some clients have multiple template sets that they use for different purposes. So you'd select the correct one for the particular page that you're using here. Next, under Petition Text, you get to set the statement lead-in and the statement text. Essentially, when someone opens this petition page, what's going to convince them to sign a petition? Here, I've written a short blurb about how there is no planet B and we need to act now on climate change. If I scroll down a little bit on the Edit Content page, I get to the thank you text, which is what will appear on the thank you page. Here I wrote, "Thanks for signing this petition. Can you share it now?" And scrolling all the way down, now I get to select which questions I'm going to ask visitors and in which order. Email is always required, but we can customize everything else. On this page, I've chosen to require full name, email, and zip code. Asking for more information can be really nice to have and very useful, but in my example, since sometimes asking for more information can lead to lower action rates, I'm not going to include it. On this next page, I get to choose what happens after someone has completed an action. Here at the After Action Info page. By default, ActionKit will create a thank you page and send users to it after they've signed the petition. But many clients like to send their signers to donation pages afterwards to try to turn petition signers into donors. You can do that here by changing the redirect URL to a donation page of your choice, whether that's located in ActionKit or another service like ActBlue. Also shown in this screenshot is a confirmation email section that thanks the user for signing the petition. You can customize everything about this mailing, from the layout and styling to the subject line, the from line, and the email body. If you look closely, you'll also see that I've added some personalization in there, and I'll show you how to do that in a few slides. As a side note, if you have a donation page set up and you're working on the after action info of that donation page, make sure that you're sending a confirmation email. That way your donors will get a donation receipt, including the details of their donation. You'll need to set up some personalization to make sure that goes through, but you can do that, and I'll show you how later. So you also have full control on the After Action Info page of how your pages get shared on Facebook and Twitter. By default, ActionKit will pull in your page content to make it easy on you to share the page. But you can also customize the description and sharing image and even your tweet for each page. The fourth page section, Delivery, this is going to focus on delivering those petition signatures that you've collected. And you have a lot of options here. First, highlighted in red, is you can generate a PDF and customize the look and feel of that PDF exactly the way that you want it. This is great if you're doing in-person deliveries. And one quick note, petition pages don't automatically deliver to anyone, so you can test new petitions, see if they work, try things out without worrying. Down below, if you choose to email your targets, they will receive an email when someone signs your petition. Here, I've chosen the recommended setting, immediate, then batch. And this is really important. I'm not going to go super in depth as to why it's the recommended setting, but here's a quick overview of how it works. You want your targets to actually read your petition signatures, and the recommended setting is a good balance between making sure that they see them, but also not harming your sender reputation. How it works is if one of your targets receives 30 messages or more in a 24-hour window, it's going to stop delivering those as they come in and then switch to batch delivery, sending a big spreadsheet of those signatures. So the first 30 messages do get delivered in real time. After that, here's a big daily digest of all of the signatures that you got. We think that that's really the best of both worlds, so that your targets do see that there's a lot of momentum for this. But if it was deliver every single signature as they came in, it would hurt your sender reputation. All that said, once you've made your selections, you need to configure your immediate delivery subject. So here's end subsidies for big oil, and here's my mailing body as well. Dear, and here's some personalization that I've added in. Dear target name, I just signed a petition titled End Subsidies for Big Oil. Here's my comment, sincerely, Shannon. So, and again, I'll show you how to do the personalization in a few slides. Scrolling down a bit more, I get to, I think there's a little bit of a lag with the slides. Sorry about that. There we go. I get to my batch settings. Batch delivery essentially says we're going to send your target a big list of all of the signatures rather than flooding their inbox. So I've configured my subject and my mailing body, again with lots of personalization. And here I've said that my target can download a spreadsheet of all of the signatures. Finally, on this page is communicating with Congress, which is the U.S. House's preferred way of receiving petition signatures. The good thing about communicating with Congress is that it goes through their officially supported system, so constituents will likely receive a response. The bad thing about it is that the system requires things like a salutation, like Mr. or Ms., and it requires a full address. So if you use that system, your page will also need to collect that information in order to deliver those signatures. Also, communicating with Congress is only available for the House and not the Senate. Once we've configured all of that, then let's go ahead and click View on Site to see what our completed petition page looks like. So here we can see we've got End Subsidies for Big Oil, that's our title. Here's my petition statement, and here's the fields that I wanted to require, and then I have space for a comment as well. And when I actually fill out the form and sign the petition, here's the after action page and what that looks like. So we just saw a petition page from creation, configuring all of the different settings, seeing it live, and then signing it. But before we move on to call pages, I want to take a look at how to create a list of targets. On the Pages tab, when we expand the Targets menu in the sidebar, you can choose from either legislative targets or custom targets. And I want to look at legislative targets first. So in between this screen and the one we just saw, there would be a blue plus sign at the top of the page, Add New Legislative Target Group. If I click that, it sends me to this screen where I can customize my legislative targets. ActionKit has legislative data for U.S. House, U.S. Senate, and all 50 state House and state Senates. So let's say I wanted to target a mailing just to Maryland State House Republicans. First, I'm going to give my group a meaningful name, which Maryland State House Republicans is pretty descriptive, so I'm going to go with that. And next, I'm going to choose State House as the type from this drop-down menu. And then I want to limit it to Maryland, so I type in MD here. Then I'm going to check the box for target Republicans. You can narrow this down even further by including or excluding specific legislators that you want to target. And at the bottom is a count of how many targets your choices will end up with. So for these particular choices, I get 50. Here's another example. Here I've created a list of U.S. House Green New Deal supporters, and I'm adding them in one by one as more people come out in favor of the Green New Deal. You can get as complicated or as straightforward with this targeting as suits your purposes. So if you know 5 squishy senators that you need to make sure go your way, you can target them like this. Or if you want to make sure that you're calling all Democrats or calling all Republicans, you can do that too. And you don't have to limit yourself to just targeting legislators either. You could target other elected officials, like city council members or governors. You could target media or corporate CEOs. Let's say, for instance, that I wanted to contact the CEOs of streaming services and ask them to drop R. Kelly from their platforms. I could create a custom target group just for that. The jurisdiction here depends on who you're targeting. If you're targeting city council members, the jurisdiction would be city. If you're targeting governors, the jurisdiction is state. Since this is streaming service CEOs, it doesn't really matter where people live. You don't have to live in a certain place to use Spotify or Pandora or the other services. I still want my users to be able to contact them. These optional fields let you send your members to tweet at or Facebook your targets. And if you have a whole lot of targets, you can upload a spreadsheet of them here. Since I only have a few of these targets, I'm going to add them in manually. If I scroll down a little bit, I can see where I can add my custom targets. Here I've added in the names and contact information for my targets, the CEO of Spotify and Pandora. Then I'll be able to use this targeting in a call page, sending my users to call them and asking them to mute R. Kelly. Here I also have their name, their pronouns, their phone number, their email. So it doesn't just have to be a phone call. And on my call page, I would go in and I would add the target group, streaming service CEOs, mute R. Kelly. So on the Action Basics screen of your call page, this is where you'd add that. For a moment though, let's go back to our Let's Call the U.S. Senate About Fossil Fuels call page and go to the Edit Content screen. I think there we go. Here I've written out my introduction text. There is no Planet B. And I'm writing my script here. So now I'm going to show you the personalization. So I wrote out, hello, my name is blank. And if I go to this snippets menu right here, if I click snippets, it's going to expand this menu right here. And then I can scroll around and find the snippet that I want. So there are so many options that you can choose from. And the best way to see everything is just scrolling around and seeing what's there. So, hello, my name is, and I'm going to find in the snippets menu, user's first name. And I click that, and it's going to insert it right there where I was typing. And then I type, and I live in blank. And so I'm going to find user city, and I'm calling to ask blank. And so I find my pages with targets and Senator/Representative Smith. If I click that, then it's going to insert, Senator, Smith, Representative Smith. You have so many options for personalization that the best advice that I can give you is to create a test page and play around with the different personalization snippets that you can use. And I'll show you these snippets again when we cover mailings in a little bit. Next, I'm going to ask, how'd it go for the survey question text that gets asked for the call report. Like on other types of pages, you can customize what appears on the thank you page after someone has taken action here. And like on other types of pages, it's worth asking, what information should we be asking of our users? For this screenshot, I'm actually using a call page that targets state legislators just to highlight something. If you're targeting state legislators, street address is actually required. So you need to pull in and ask for that street address. Otherwise, you won't know who their state legislator is. So this little red message comes up to say, hey, since you're targeting to state legislators, I need to require street address. Let's go back and see what our call page looks like now that it's finished. Looks pretty similar to a petition page, but when we enter our information and click submit, then we come to a page that has our call script and our targets to call and a way to report how the call went. And so you can also see their phone number and their local office numbers as well. And before we move on to mailing, let's go back to the Pages tab once more and see a way to compare the performance of our pages. In the sidebar menu, we go to Compare Pages. And on the following screen, we enter one or more pages that we'd like to compare the performance of. You'll see the total number of actions, how much money was given, by how many people, and how many new members were created from this page, how many clicks, and the conversion rate of this page. This is just one of the many reports available to you, and although we won't cover how to do so today, the Reports tab is where you'll be able to carve up the data on actions in many different ways in order to help guide your decision-making processes. So that was a lot, and now we're going to move on to mailings so that we can stay on track with time. There we go. On screen is the Mailings tab, where on the left, this probably looks pretty similar to the Pages tab, except in green it's yellow. But here you can browse your mailing drafts and your recently sent mailings. In this screenshot, I have two arrows pointed at the main ways that you'd create a mailing. If your organization has created mailing models, you'll probably want to use the Draft From Model button and choose the relevant mailing model. I'm not going to go into how to create a mailing model today, but if your organization has set up mailing models, they're just like page models, right? They're a template that you can copy off of and begin working from there. And they can save a lot of time. So some clients haven't created a mailing model, and that's just fine. You'll use Create New Draft in order to make your new mailings. Once I've created my draft, I'm going to be taken to the Compose Mailing screen, where I'll be able to configure all of the details of my mailing. The first thing that we do is we set our subject line. Here I've made my subject line, it's time for a Green New Deal. And if you want to configure the preview text, You can do that here too. Preview text is what appears after the subject line, but before you've opened mailing. If you're scrolling on your phone or if you have your email app open, sometimes you'll see that preview text. If you leave the preview text blank, it's just going to use the mailing's body as the preview text. I want to call attention to the help text here. It's easy to overlook, but pay attention to it because it often has important hints or clarifications or reminders of how things work. This help text is great. So keep an eye out and look for it because you'll see it a lot throughout ActionKit. Here, this hint gives us a time-saving suggestion about multiple subject lines. Now, sure, if you wanted to use multiple subject lines with this mailing, you could just click this blue plus button for each subject line that you wanted and add them one by one, but there's another way to do it. Let's say on staff we discuss which subject lines we're going to use in Slack. Here in Slack, I've highlighted the subject lines that we agreed upon. I'm going to highlight, I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste into this subject line box, and ActionKit will automatically put each line of text into its own subject line. And the way subject line testing works in ActionKit is it's going to split the emails about equally among all of the subject lines that you choose. So about 25% of the recipients of this mailing are going to get a subject line, "It's time for a Green New Deal." About 25% will get, "Did you see who came out in support of the Green New Deal?" And so on. Now that we've entered in our subject lines, who's this email going to be from? You can choose a selection of from lines here, or if you notice the blue plus sign, you can create one on the fly. Usually, you'll leave the reply to blank to leave it as the same address as the from line. But if you needed to customize it, you could do that here. Just like with pages, the notes field is only visible to you and other members of your staff. Recipients of your mailing don't see it. It's an internal field to help you and other staff members know what this mailing was all about, so be descriptive. You can think of tags as categories for what a mailing is all about. And your team has likely set up a specific way that they categorize pages and mailings, so go with that. Scrolling down a bit more, the wrapper controls the layout and look and feel of the mailing. Just by changing the wrapper that we're using, we can entirely change the look and feel of this mailing. The only thing that's changing here is the wrapper, not the content. Your team will have already created a set of mailing wrappers with your branding, and generally you'll probably only use one or two, and in different situations. For instance, you might have one layout for general emails to your membership, and you might have a different layout for newsletters or fundraising. This landing page is the page that you created in ActionKit that you want to link to from your mailing. So this could be a petition page or a call page, donation page, really any type of page, but usually this is your main call to action. We'll talk more about customization in a few slides, but if your mailing is personalized to say, call Senator Warren or call Senator Harris, depending on where someone lives, you'll need to use a landing page here, and you'll need to make sure that that page has the appropriate targets set up. If we scroll down a little bit, we get to the mailing body where we write the main content of the email. The greeting, the lead, the call to action, really any personalization, the whole meat of the mailing, it all goes here. And this is the visual view where you can see roughly what your mailing content looks like as you type it in. And if we clicked on code here, we can toggle between visual and code here, highlighted in red. That's going to take you to the code view where you could view the HTML that's going on behind the scenes. So you can switch back and forth as necessary to adjust your mailing, make small changes to the HTML if you need to, and then go back to visual and see what it looks like. If you don't have the option for visual mode, please note that some clients have actually disabled the visual editor. So let's see. I'm going to go back to the visual mode since it's easier to read. But if we click on the snippets menu right here, or the snippets button highlighted in red here, we're going to bring down the snippets menu. And a snippet is a small piece of code. Like we saw on Pages, it works the same way. This lets you personalize your email message tailored to the individual recipient. So, hello, Shannon, in the greeting of an email. With your snippets menu open, you just click the snippet that you want, and it's going to be placed at the position of your cursor in the mailing body. There are so many snippets available to you, and we really don't have time to go into all of them. So I want to share just a few to get your gears turning. You can tell someone to call their senator by name and give their senator's phone number, including local office numbers. There's every option to make your sentences with those targets grammatically correct, saying he or she or they as appropriate, or his or her or their as appropriate. You get the idea. There's also highest previous donation and a host of similar donation-based snippets that let you customize based on past giving. You can recruit members to an event. You can do if and else trees. You can check on a user's custom action fields. There's so much more that you could do, and we could spend just a full hour of snippets. So sadly, we have to move on, and I have to leave you with this link. But make a test mailing and try them out. I think you'll be really pleased with how much flexibility there is. The best way to see what a snippet would do is to view it in the preview. And of course, this is a great way to make sure that your mailing looks exactly the way that you want it to. So if we scroll down a little bit, we'll find the preview pane, and you may need to click on the word preview to expand the pane if it's collapsed. For the most part, the preview will automatically update as you make changes to your mailing. So I think this looks pretty good. You can see how my mailing looks, make changes, scroll down back to the preview until it looks exactly the way that I want. If your preview isn't updating, you can always click this Update Preview button down here to force the preview pane to refresh. And there's also a button here that says View Mobile Preview, which when you click on it, it'll give you an example of what your mailing will look like on a smaller screen. So if we click that now, we can see that the mailing has squished in a little bit, looking a bit more like what it would look like on a phone. And this is pretty important since a large number of your members are opening emails on their phones, so you want it looking good at all sizes. And of course, if we wanted to go back to desktop, there's that button for it. Previews are helpful for making sure that your mailing looks good, but the true test comes in sending a proof mailing to yourself. And a proof mailing is one of the actual emails that we will send to someone, except it's sent to you instead of to them. Once you're satisfied with your preview, you're happy with your mailing, and you're ready to move on to targeting, first send yourself a proof. And many clients will generate a proof and send it around to staff for final checks and edits, or sometimes even earlier as part of the draft stages. If I switch over to my email really quickly, you can see that I've got my proof email here. If something looks wrong, especially with one of your snippets that creates the personalization, you can make your edits and get more proofs to make sure that everything looks good. So that was the compose screen. Next, I'm going to move on to the target screen. This is where we get to choose who receives this email. And if we click to add criteria to this set, oof, that is a lot of options. Let's dig in. This is an important one, so I want to call special attention to it because you're probably going to use this include in pretty much every mailing that you send, with few exceptions. We include the main email list, and you can get there from Add Criteria, Lists, and then type in Main Email List. The reason for this is your organization may have multiple email lists, including some that are not supposed to receive any mailings, but they're not necessarily unsubscribed either. So if you don't include a list in your targeting, ActionKit will remind you on the following page. If I chose actions from the drop-down menu, I can target to people who have taken action on one or more pages. And highlighted in red here shows that some of the targeting categories have hints if you hover over them. So I've chosen a page, we need to invest in solar jobs, and anyone who has taken action on that page will receive this mailing. You can target by multiple pages. So this will give me anyone who has taken action on either page or both pages. You can also target by events. So let's say I wanted to set up an event campaign for congressional town halls for the Green New Deal, and I wanted anybody who lives within 10 miles of an event to be able to attend. There's also some checkboxes to make sure that I'm not sending someone who lives on the border of 2 states to an event in the wrong state or to an event in the wrong congressional district. You can also target to donors, including anyone who has ever donated ever, or just active donors, or anyone who's given a recurring donation, people's cards who are about to expire, people whose cards did expire, and so on. You can also target to people who have received a specific email. Let's say a link was bad and you needed to send out a corrected link. You can choose the mailing that you want to target by here. And a few slides ago, we targeted by who has taken action on a set of pages. That's fine if you have a few specific pages in mind, but if your organization is really good about tagging pages, you can instead target by tag. As a reminder, think of tags as broad categories. So what is this page or mailing all about? So here, I want to target anyone who has taken action on a page tagged with climate change. And this is another reason to go back and tag all of your pages that have had a lot of actions taken. It'll make targeting like this much easier. There's also lots of options for targeting by location. You could do city or zip code radius, congressional district, country, state house, state senate, states. Those are the most common ways. And heads up that if you're targeting by state house or state senate, you'll usually need someone's full address in order to know which one they're in. The query library option allows you to target by a query report that you've previously written. Let's say I wrote a report in the Reports tab, which sadly we don't have time to cover today, called Many Recent Actions. And this is going to give me a list of all users who have taken several actions in the last 90 days. These are my most active users, so I want to send them this mailing, and this is how I can target them. I go to Query Library, and I choose my query. Just like a few slides ago when I said, hey, target to anyone who has taken action on either of these pages, if you include multiple queries, it'll say, target to anyone who matches either or both of these queries. Under limits, if you enter a number here, this is going to limit the number of people who receive your mailing. For instance, if you have 50,000 people who match your targeting, but you only want to send to 10,000 of them right now, you would enter 10,000 here. This is often used for testing a mailing before going for a full list send or to stagger calls. Once you've finished your targeting, the next screen is the proof and send screen. This is your chance to review your mailing, make sure it looks good, and that you've gotten all of the details correct before you send. So here I can review the subject lines that I've chosen, my from line, my internal notes, my wrapper, which is going to control the layout. And I want to say that you can change the notes and tags later on, but everything else can't be changed once the mailing has been sent. Here's my chance to review who is going to receive this mailing. Right now, my targeting shows that this is going to send to 30 people. And so you should take a close look at your includes and excludes to make sure that this looks right and aligns with what you expect your targeting count to be. So I would be thinking, how many people would match either many recent actions or best sharers minus the re-engagement list? Does that make sense to be 30 people? Cool. And some clients have customized a pre-send dashboard that will give you a checklist or set of reminders before you send your mailing. Here, I've customized my dashboard to remind me of all the steps I need to take before a mailing is ready to go out. Everything from drafting, getting proofs, clicking all the links, making sure it looks good on mobile, and so on. You've also got the option to send proofs from this screen as well, which is helpful for double checking that everything looks good with your mailing. Now, not everybody has access to be able to send mailings, but if you do, you'll see a few options at the very bottom of your page. Send will send the mailing. Schedule for later lets you schedule it for another time. Maybe 5 minutes from now, maybe another date entirely. Make recurring is especially useful for setting up mailings like a welcome series or getting donors with an expiring credit card to renew. And if I check my email, it really did send. This is the email that I sent to all of you. ActionKit will recognize a user from the email. So when you send a mailing to someone, ActionKit will put a unique identifier, the AK ID, into the link so that the recipient doesn't have to enter their information every time. Think about it this way. If I could personalize an email to say, hey, Shannon, right, because I know who I'm sending it to, then I could probably expect that when I click through that link, it's going to recognize me. Hey, Shannon, thanks for clicking. You should sign up for this webinar. So in the mailing I sent out inviting people to sign up for the webinar, there was a link to the page, and when you clicked it, probably recognized you. So let's say I received the mailing, click on the link to RSVP, highlighted in red here, it says, not Shannon, click here. Well, I am Shannon, so I can just click sign up. Some of you probably had this mailing forwarded to you by a coworker though. So I bet a few of you had to click, nope, I'm not Shannon, or the name of your colleague here. And when you did, the user recognition will disappear and you'll get to enter in your own name and email address. But behind the scenes, ActionKit knows that your colleague referred you to this page. Or maybe your colleague forwarded you this email, but it never showed you not Shannon, click here. Well, why not? If your colleague already took action on that page, ActionKit knows that, assumes that they forwarded it onto you, and it won't fill out their details on the form. So this is like a quick overview because sometimes it can be helpful to see it broken down point by point. So I receive an email, I click the action page recognizes me by the AK ID in the link, I take action, and then I say, hey, Tanya, check out this page. Tanya clicks. The action page sees my AK ID, but also knows that I've already taken action. So it doesn't say to Tanya, hey, Shannon. Instead, the page shows a fresh form. And this is the example for if I didn't take action on the page, but instead I just forwarded it straight to Tanya. But for the most part, chances are if someone's going to forward an email to a friend, they've already clicked through and taken action themselves. So this is a bit more rare. But all that to say, user recognition is such an important feature. It saves a lot of time and your users are expecting it. So in this example, clicking the Call the U.S. Senate email, that's going to send me straight through to the call script page. I don't have to enter in all of my information. It already knows, oh, I live in Baltimore, here are my senators. And since call pages are a higher bar ask, user recognition can be especially important here. Once your mailing's been out in the world for a little bit, people are going to open it, read it, click it, and take action. And you're going to want to know, how is my mailing doing? From the Mailings tab, if you click Sent and then find your mailing, you can click View to see the performance report. You can also see a little quick, oh, here's how many people opened and clicked on it there. This is the email that I sent to you, inviting you to join this webinar. So we can see how many people opened, how many people clicked, how many people took action. This next table shows forwards. So this mailing in particular, being a webinar training, got a lot of forwards and quite a few new users as well. And probably a few of you had this email forwarded to you by a coworker. This particular mailing only has one subject line, but if your mailing has multiple subject lines, you'll see all of these stats broken out by subject line as well. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can see the unsubscribes, the bounces, and spam complaints for our mailings. Since this is a pretty friendly audience of ActionKit clients, I'm not surprised that 0 people unsubscribed or marked this mailing as spam, but also thank you. And we can see how many clicks each link in our mailing received. So this link got 25 clicks, about a 10% click rate. Before we wrap, I want to highlight one thing that can trip up a lot of folks and how to avoid it. Before you can use page target snippets, those specific snippets that are customized to, call Senator Warren or call Senator Harris, depending on where you live. Before you can use those, you need a landing page. And you need that landing page targeted with those specific people that you're trying to reach. But sometimes when you set that up and you go to get your preview, you're going to get this error. You didn't actually do anything wrong. What's actually going on is something that we need to fix on the targeting screen. We can't fix it from the compose screen. This won't happen every time, but it happens often enough that I thought I'd mention it. On the targeting screen, there's this special criteria, landing page targets, that will only appear when you're using a landing page with targets. So in this case, this says to ActionKit, I want the people who are constituents of my landing page's targets to receive this mailing. So if my landing page targets are House Republicans, only people whose representative is a Republican will receive that mailing. And if you're getting that error that we saw on the last page, you probably need to check that box. So generally, if you're targeting with the landing page, this checkbox is what you want. So we covered a whole lot in a short amount of time. So as a reminder, I'm going to be sending around this recording to folks on Monday, and you'll also get a copy of the slides. I know that we went through things really fast, and we really only scratched the surface, but I'd love to run more trainings like this in the future. So take a look at the documentation and our blog posts. If there's anything that you'd be interested in seeing more about, let me know. And thanks everybody for taking the time to chat.